From the Delhi studios of Republic TV, it's time for Arnab Goswami on the debate.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And it's time now for your favorite section, the nation's sharpest opinion. And tonight my opinion is on this desperate attempt at continuing to glamorize the Mughals. Now there is this ongoing debate which I'm very amused about. It's been going on for the last few days, saying, oh my God, what's going to happen? Our young, our youth, our school-going children, none of them are going to know anymore how great, how magnificent, how wonderful, how nationalistic, how amazing, how thought-provoking, how secular, how accommodating the Mughals have been. Viewers, in this country there has been an obsession among one section about the Mughals. It's as if anything that has happened in India is because of the Mughals. It's as if the origin of anything great, anything wonderful, anything civilizational, anything architectural, anything literary is because of the Mughals. Indian history, according to these people, which actually dates back 75,000 years, is limited to some 200 to 300 years of Mughal history. Mughals, according to this group, are like the pharaohs of India, the source of eternal Indian civilization. And please don't be amused. This is the same group of sellouts. According to them, there are only two dynasties who have ever contributed to the history of this country. One, the Mughals, and the second, the Vadra Gandhis. Ladies and gentlemen, they face an existential crisis today with the Vadra Gandhis facing one of their own, and now they are saying, at least let us hold on to the crumbs of the past. And to them, I have a few questions for tonight to start them thinking. Question number one. People say NCERT textbooks won't have Mughals. I ask, why did the NCERT textbook for class 7 have nearly 10 pages of a full-fledged chapter on the Mughals, where the INA and Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose's struggle against the British was given just a space of one paragraph? What is this Romila Thaparization of history, I ask? Second question. Why did the NCERT Class 12 book have chapters spanning 29 pages on how the Mughals administered India so beautifully, while there are no chapters on the Sikh Empire's brave exploits, with no details of how their court administrations ran? Sikh history is but a blur. Mughal history is essential. My third question, ladies and gentlemen. Why should the NCERT have huge experts from Ain Akbari, the Badshah Nama, the Babar Nama, recording how Mughals saw their Indian subjects, how grand and generous the Mughals were for the native Indians? And why was there absolutely almost zero mention of Bhagat Singh, Rajguru and Sukhdev, who died for their country? Viewers, the fact of the matter is there are some people who've been trying to make the Mughals into the pharaohs of India, the film stars of Indian history. Not one mention of everything that was done by the Mughals that was communal, barbaric, intolerant. And finally, there is one last point I want to add. They say there is not enough of the Vadra Gandhis. The same people also say we can't have enough of the Mughals. We want more of the Mughals. We want more of the Vadra Gandhis. We want more places named after the Mughals. 704 government schemes, 400 government schemes named after members of the Vadra Gandhi family, ladies and gentlemen. And 706 places named after the Mughals. Akbar Road, Aurangzeb Road, Humayun Road. It's incredible. And hence, I would like to simply say, put things in perspective. The Mughals are very limited in their contribution to the greatness of this country. We are not removing them, but we need to rationalize them. I would go one step further. We need to rationalize a lot of the others as well. This should only be the beginning. Let's debate.
Speculation about removing Mughal history from textbooks in Uttar Pradesh sparked immediate controversy. The Samajwadi Party came out in fierce support of the Mughal legacy.
मुगलों ने तो सब यहाँ किले बनवाए, ताजमहल फलानी और बहुत सी चीज़ें बनवाई, तो वो सब इस मुल्क के लिए छोड़ गए, तो वो हमारे मुल्क के लिए किया उन्होंने। उनके इतिहास में इस किस्म की कोई बात नहीं मिलती हमें, और इस किस्म का इतिहास को निकाल देना उस सबक में से, उस किताब में से, ये घटिया बात है, ये मुनासिब नहीं है।
The AIMIM is raising the issue.
कि यहाँ पर मोदी सरकार NCERT से मुगलों की तारीख को मिटाया जा रहा है और चीन हमारी प्रेजेंट को मिटा रहा है।
The AIUDF accused BJP of distorting history.
Ministers, they try to give false information to the people of India regarding history, and they are trying to manipulate Indian history, and they try to destroy all the glorious destinies in India.
Turns out there is no elimination of Mughal history.
12th की किताब से मुगलों को हटाया गलत है। कोविड-19 की वजह से सब जगह बच्चों के ऊपर प्रेशर था कि कैसे वो अपनी इतने कम समय में पढ़ाई करेंगे। इसके लिए पूरे देश और समाज से ये महसूस किया गया कि बच्चों का वर्क कंटेंट लोड कुछ टेक्स्ट बुक का कम करना चाहिए। उसके लिए रेशनलाइजेशन का प्रोसेस होता है। ये जो लोग डिबेट कर रहे हैं ये अननेसेसरी है, गैर वाजिब है, इसकी ज़रूरत नहीं है। और जो नहीं जानते हैं वो किताब देख लें, इराटा देख लें पिछले साल का, NCERT की टेक्स्ट बुक जो हमारी वेबसाइट पे अपलोडेड है उसको देख लें।
But can there be selective glamorization of the Mughals without talking of the atrocities inflicted?
एक और धार्मिक कट्टरता, और उस कट्टरता में अंधी इतनी बड़ी मुगल सल्तनत, दूसरी ओर ज्ञान और तपस्या में तपे हुए हमारे गुरु, भारत के प्राचीन मानवीय मूल्यों को जीने वाली परंपरा, एक और आतंक की पराकाष्ठा, तो दूसरी ओर अध्यात्म का शीर्ष, एक और मजहबी उन्माद, तो दूसरी ओर सब में ईश्वर देखने वाली उदारता, और इस सब के बीच एक और लाखों की फौज, और दूसरी ओर अकेले होकर भी निडर खड़े गुरु के वीर साहबजादे।
Can a 75,000-year history of India be defined by 3 Mughal-ruled centuries, while the Pandyan Empire, the Ahom dynasty, and the Indus Valley civilization be conveniently blacked out? History must include all vectors of reality. Let's debate.
Abhijit Chawda, my question is to you, historian Abhijit Chawda. There has been this obsession after Babur, 61 places named after Babur. If you look about it, this is too much. It's the Mughals oozing out of every damn thing, every book, every place. Don't we need to really bring them down to where they really belong? I mean, you know, is there anything wrong putting things in perspective now?
There is nothing wrong with putting anything in perspective. You know, our national motto is Satyamev Jayate, and yet the education system goes against that. It's one of the worst atrocities that's been perpetrated on the people of India. Our history textbooks teach blatantly distorted history. They glamorize certain people and certain dynasties and completely ignore everybody else. And the objective is to systematically brainwash and socially engineer and gaslight an entire civilization and make us worship false heroes. So for instance, we have, you spoke about Babur and Humayun and all that. Akbar. We are taught that Akbar was a great hero. He was Akbar the Great. And we are not taught that what he did in Chittorgarh. He killed 30,000 men, women, and children, innocent people, and enslaved God knows how many more. How can that person be a hero? He was a beast. What about Aurangzeb? New York Times tells us that he killed at least 6 billion people. The truth is, he must have killed many more. So we are selectively taught the false history about some people. The Mughals and the Delhi Sultanate, etc., are glamorized greatly, and we are not taught the 10,000-year plus true history of India. The greatness of the Saraswati Sindhu era of our history, the Mauryan dynasty, the Kushan dynasty, Gupta, Karkota, Chera, Pandya, Chola, the Ahom dynasty, the Marathas, the great Marathas who defeated the Mughals and freed India. We are taught nothing about any of this. So what we need is factual history. We need to really know what happened, the truth about India. Not just, like you said, 30, 40 pages focusing on the Mughals and another 50 pages focusing on the British occupiers of India who totally destroyed India. So it makes India's children worship false heroes, and they grow up with this great sense of, that we are nothing, and a great inferiority complex. And that's what's been perpetrated on India since 1947. The purpose of teaching history is to understand why we face the challenges we do today, and to understand what went wrong. And it is about learning and heeding the lessons of history. We have to understand that history is cyclical. We have to go forward into the future better prepared. So we need to be taught the right history, and that's the thing
I in fact believe, Karan and Ratan Sharda, I believe that we must give space to the Mughals, because people must know about the Mughals. They must know about the massacre and forced conversions and rapes carried out by the Mughal army, how Hindu women were subjected to slavery, how massacres happened at will, how Aurangzeb had 2 sons of Guru Gobind killed, suffocated to death, put in a brick kiln, burnt alive, And I think people should know the reality about Mughals, how Guru Tegh Bahadur was put to death, how he had to watch his followers being cut into pieces, how the Mughals would boil and fry their opponents. I think the truth about Mughals must be made public in this country, because this Romila Thaparization of Indian history is insanity. We must know about how the Mughals destroyed Kashi Vishwanath, and anyone who did not pay jizya tax was trampled with elephants. How an entire colony in Hooghly was burnt, and how women and children were thrown into the sea. We must know the truth about the Mughals, I say. Give all of these things space, Tala Amir Rashidi. Yes, Mr. Rashidi, what am I lying? What is not true? Karan, let him speak. What is it? What did I say which is not true?
Can you prove them with evidence apart from rhetorics and false and lies, and the preset propaganda?
Baba, read Mughal history written by...
Read their own account. Written by WhatsApp University,
What have you read?
Mughal history from the WhatsApp University. I have these 2 professors sitting here qualified from the WhatsApp University of BJP and RSS.
You have not seen the history.
You have not seen the history written by Mughals' own historians,
where they glamorize.
Okay, 1 minute. Not everybody together. Not everybody together. For Tala Amir Rashidi. For Tala Amir Rashidi. For Tala Amir Rashidi. Mr. Rashidi, I am not a person who does not accept a challenge. I have accepted your challenge. You are saying I'm from WhatsApp University.
Arnab, why don't you talk
I am not
about-
from
why don't
WhatsApp
you talk
University.
about Ashoka
I have
the
gone to
Great,
3 very
who
good
was
universities,
who is
but I
said
haven't
to
been
be
to
one
WhatsApp
second,
University.
1,000
Though I
people.
think you've done your doctorate from there, or maybe an MPhil right now. Now my question to you is this. Since I am wrong, Ratan Sharda, I would like Tala Amir Rashidi to tell me that when the brave Guru Tegh Bahadur was publicly executed, why was he publicly executed?
And his 3 disciples also.
And is it true that he was publicly executed because Guru Tegh Bahadur stood up to Aurangzeb and said, your policy of religious persecution of Hindus cannot be accepted? He stood up for the rights of the Hindu community, and
Before him, Guru Arjan Dev.
and because he did not allow his followers or himself, there was no question of conversion. So he was put in a cage and he was made to watch his followers, one cut into pieces, another thrown into a cauldron of boiling water. Is this true or not? And can you tell me, Tala Amir Rashidi, ये किस NCERT की किताब में इसका वर्णन है?
Please go and ask the education ministry. You know, the other thing is that why are you so obsessed with Mughals, Arnab? Arnab, why are you so obsessed with Mughals? What does that?
Now see, he changes the.
Within them,
I am obsessed. I am obsessed.
Why do you want
I am
to create-
obsessed.
Okay.
Why do you
You're
want to
obsessed.
create-
he's upset. Can we
Why
tell
do
him
you
something?
want to create a fake history now? Why
Okay,
are you
let
talking
us
about
say-
a fake history without any evidences, without any quotes, without any references? Your questions
How do you
are-
know there is no
सच्चाई है,
reference?
ये लोग पढ़ेंगे इसके
How
बारे
do
में.
you know
Without
there is no
any
reference?
references, without any quotes,
How
without
do you know any reference?
evidences?
Please
How
tell
can
me
you
how,
question
where
that?
is without reference?
Where
There are books and books
The
written by
questions that he
Muslim
has asked, is there any
historians
reference
themselves.
about that?
मुझे
Or-
ये
or- or
बताइए,
these questions have come from
संभाजी
the WhatsApp University.
संभाजी was killed
Why don't you talk
alive.
about the 100
Sambhaji
One minute,
was
one minute, one
blinded.
minute.
that have been said to
Tala,
have been
Tala,
said by
on the right we have
the
2
great
versus
Tala, just a
2.
moment.
Wait, 1 minute. Let Ratan
Tala,
Sharda speak.
Yeah. Will he also say that Shivaji's brave son Sambhaji, his eyes were blinded by hot rods and then he was skinned alive? He was tortured for 30 days before he was finally killed. He will deny that also. He will deny that the population of Hindus actually went down by 80 million during Mughal Empire. Will he say that we are proud that Bakhtiarpur existed, where Bakhtiar actually destroyed entire Nalanda? Should he celebrate that? We are the only people who celebrate invaders. And let me ask you, Mughals were so great, why you don't find any big building? Just a moment, yaar. Why you don't find
Please don't cherry pick.
buildings
Please stop cherry picking and
in
propagating your
Afghanistan,
propaganda
in
and
Uzbekistan,
agenda.
in why there are no
Everything
great
and
buildings
everything that
there?
was involved in
What you have
violent
you done
wars
to
and
that?
battles.
Oh, so religious violence is valid because it is Islam and Muslims. So religious violence is fine because it is Muslim. So killing people for conversion
I think
is
that
fine.
I think that all I am
Killing
asking
people
for
conversion is fine.
all I am asking for is a true history of the country to be written. And Karan is on the debate. Sandeep is on the debate. I want all bias and prejudice to be removed from the writing of our history. And I want us as a people. Karan.
I want to make a point, Arnab.
Karan, go.
Arnab, I want
Karan,
to make
go.
a point,
Make your
please.
point. Go on.
Arnab, they have not even hidden this. They have, in fact, these Mughals, these shameless Mughals, they have worn it as a badge of honor in their own writings. Read Fateh-e-Nama Chittor, where Akbar writes that today I have become a slayer of the infidels. I assume the title of Ghazi. He has written it and worn it as a badge of honor. Read Tuzuke Babari, Babar Nama, where he celebrates the desecration of temples. Read Aurangzeb's Masir-e Alamgiri, where he tells how he gave an order for the destruction of Kashi Vishwanath. Truth is, Arnab, read Udupi, read what Mahmud Ghazni's autobiography says. All these barbarians and invaders, it is a sad reality, Arnab, that we have debased ourselves. We have celebrated our humiliation and it's time that ends. We need to celebrate our real heroes. We need to celebrate Lachit Borphukan. How many people know about Lachit Borphukan? How many people know about Rani Chinnamma? It's high time we ended this mess that
since
was
you say
created
that,
by these historians.
since you say that, the other question I have to ask. And I believe that when you write about history, the aspect of religion is always there. How can we talk about history without religion? Religion is always there. You can't talk about the history of Europe without talking about Calvinism. You can't talk about what happened there. But at the same time, you have to talk about the history of the Vatican, about the Protestants, about the Anglo-Saxon church. You'll have to talk about religion. But my concern is, somewhere any non-Mughal or non-Muslim rulers of India,
not Anglo-Saxons,
or Hindu rulers of India, somewhere they have been made into a cameo. A side show. And you mentioned Lachit Borphukan. By the way, I'm from Assam, the Ahom dynasty.
Yes,
ruled
absolutely.
for 600 years.
Sure.
From about 1200 to 1820, 1830. Where is the reference? Acha, why you don't like any Hindu text, so you don't like Arthashastra also? So you want to destroy the intellectual history of Hinduism? You don't want to talk about any of the Hindu rulers of South India?
Want to talk about Dara Shikoh.
Why are Hindu rulers bad? Why? Tell me, Monojit, tell me, Vivek, are Hindu rulers not to be spoken about?
Who is saying that?
Yeah, of course.
I'm saying that.
Hindu rulers should be
You want to
spoken about.
celebrate 200 years
No one
of
is
British
denying
rule?
from that.
No, but why is there an
So you
overlooking?
want to celebrate, Robert Clive, Lord Curzon, all those British rulers for 200 years? Why are you forgetting that 200 years of British rule? If you want to gloss over the Mughal dynasty, Mughal empire, you need to gloss over the history of the British rule for 200 years, because they
but nobody glamorizes the British.
more people than
Nobody
the Muslim
glamorizes the
did.
British.
Millions of people. Please learn your history
Please.
first.
Don't
Learn your history
glamorize
first.
the British. Nobody
And if
glamorizes
there
them.
was-
But
Okay,
why do they
Karan,
glamorize
wait a
the
minute.
Mughals?
Karan, wait.
There was, what is this?
Nothing
And
is
if
going
you
on.
have
We are
got
having
the
a very good
intellectual power,
discussion.
you don't need to shout.
Yeah.
Listen to me.
We'll bring
So if you
Abhijit back
have
to some-
Aurangzeb, a tyrant ruler, you also had someone like Said Mir Ali, who fought the British and became a Shaheed, better known as Titumur in this part of the country. You also had Sirajuddaulah, the last independent ruler of Bengal, who fought the British and was a martyr. You also had Mir Kashif.
And Sandeep.
So you cannot be selective in your approach to history, right? If you need to know the history, it has to be a comprehensive reading of history. And the same breath, you are completely glossing over the British, who butchered millions of India, created mayhem in this country.
Sorry,
Ever
but
since they came to
but
India and they
I
started ruling India from 1757.
I think that's wrong.
You cannot do that.
I think that's wrong.
If you are reading history,
No,
even if
I'll
it's
tell you.
shameful history must be read
Yeah.
as they are.
No.
Not the
No,
way
no.
you want to do.
No, I'll tell
you
you.
also want to gloss over Tagore. Tagore is even excluded from NCERT textbook. We do not want to learn any lesson from BJP when it comes to
Okay, let's
reading
deal with the
history.
Mughals for
They're
today.
excluding even Tagore. On the other hand, Prime Minister is so much concerned about Tagore. Everywhere he is, imitating
Okay,
Tagore.
tell me one
It's a
thing.
guru.
Tell me
It's
one
a
thing.
Kavi.
Tell me one thing.
Atmanirbhar Bharat.
Tell me one thing.
Atma Shakti.
Okay,
These
okay,
are
let me
all
ask her.
idea
You
that
see,
Mr. Prime Minister is imbibing.
I understand.
On the other hand,
Okay, 1 minute.
you are excluding Tagore from
No,
your
no, no, no,
NCERT.
no, no,
Who
no,
are these?
no.
Who are these jokers sitting in NCERT? They do not understand the value of Tagore.
Yeah, they must learn
Or the
history
Prime
from you,
Minister of
Monojit.
India
Everybody
understands
must
the
learn
value
it
of
from
Tagore.
you.
But who is this joker who is sitting in the NCERT? And yes, Prime Minister is celebrating Tagore. At least there are 3 Tagore exponents in Prime Minister's office. I know one of them. And the NCERT textbook is excluding Tagore from their syllabus. What kind of hypocrisy is this? So by the same breath, you also want to gloss over the entire stretch of Mughal period
and the Mughal rule.
I don't want to gloss over. 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 Listen to me. Listen to me. Listen to me.
Celebrating British rule.
Listen to me. Listen to me. Listen to me. Listen to me. Listen to me.
British rule.
Listen to me. Listen to me. See, you don't, you know, there is a phrase in English, Sandeep, more loyal than the king. Today, I find that both Monojit as well as Tala Amir Rashidi are more loyal to the Mughals than the Mughals themselves would have been. You see, in the coins of the Mughals, in the Mughal coins it was written, in the Mughal coins it was written, Jalaluddin Muhammad Babar Ghazi King. He was not called Akbar the Great, Akbar the Great, Akbar the Great. How come in our history it is only Akbar the Great? It's not Samudragupta the Great, not Chandragupta the Great, it is only Akbar the Great. As if the only great was Akbar.
Why is the Ashoka the great?
Why is that suffix? Why is that suffix added only? Yeah, why is that suffix added only to Akbar?
Why is the suffix added only to Ashoka?
Correct
Why
it.
is Ashoka the great?
Correct it. Correct it.
Why is Ashoka the great?
Correct it. Correct it.
Why is Ashoka the great?
One historian does not have the right to add that suffix or prefix to any particular king. Be factual. Be factual. That's what I'm saying. Sandeep.
It's not often that I agree with
Sandeep.
Monojit, but I agree with him in this point.
Vivek.
That why, leave aside the Mughal, but why not restore to the rightful place, since he's talking of Bengal and I belong to Bengal, the Bengal, the greats of Bengal, why don't we restore them to their rightful place? How many Bengalis today really know about the contribution of the great Bengal, forget Siraj Dowla, but about the great Bengali the rulers from Bengal or the anybody, including what he's talking, whether it's called Tagore. Today about the great Bengalis, apart from D.N. Roy, after that nobody has spoken about the great Bengalis who've gone across the world
Audio is not clear, Sandeep. Audio is not clear. I take that.
Hello.
I take that.
Hello.
If the Mughals were so much against the Hindus and they were killing the non-Muslims, why did Jodhabai marry Akbar?
That's such a silly question. Okay, I'll let Abhijit answer that. It's take the silliest point of the day. It's just unbelievable that anybody says something like that. If Muslims were against Hindus,
when the Turks conquered,
we'll let Abhijit answer that. Abhijit will answer that. Abhijit and Rashidi.
When the Turks conquered Anatolia, why did so many Greek women have to marry the Turks?
Let one versus one, please. Abhijit is answering you, please. Though that's really funny.
In his life, she had a very huge impact. She played a very
all right, that's wonderful. That's great to know. Thank you very much. The question is, when the Turks conquered Anatolia, why did so many Greek women have to marry the Turks? Did they do it so willingly? Do you even understand?
Now you want to discuss the history of
yes, sir.
Turkey and
what we need to have is we need to certainly focus on the past 1,000 years. There is no point glossing over Mughal history, the Turco-Mughal history. We need to seriously focus on this and focus on the past 1,000 years of humiliation, the millennium of humiliation that India has gone through. We are only now emerging from that. So we need to examine the Turco-Mughal history of India in great detail and bring out all of their wonderful achievements, the massacres they did, the population of India that came down significantly. If the population of India came down by 80 million, despite so many births happening, imagine how many people actually died. The worst genocide in human history happened in India, and not a single historian writes about this. It's high time we focus on these things, because we need to understand and know what really happened, what went wrong, and what these wonderful Turco-Mughals did to India. Only then will we be able to emerge out of this slavery mindset that many of us still labor under. So we need to focus on that.
Well, can you explain the phrase Turco-Mughals?
Yes, sir.
Can you explain that phrase Turco-Mughals, Abhijit, as a historian?
Yes, they are the Turco-Mughals. I mean, we call them the Mughals, which it comes from the word Mongols, but they were actually Turkic in origin. They were not Mongols. The Mongols under Genghis Khan never wanted to invade India. Genghis Khan was on India's doorstep and he went back. It is the Turks that invaded India. The Delhi Sultanate was a Turkic dynasty, the Turkic sequence of dynasties, and Babur himself was a Turk. He came from Fergana Valley. He came from Andijan. And his son Humayun was a Turk. And later, obviously, they married Indian women. But you know what? DNA doesn't make you Indian. It is culture that makes you Indian. And this is something we have to understand. So yeah, sure, they may have forced certain Rajput lineages to give their daughters in marriage under coercion, under the threat of death, and their sons were half Rajput or whatever. That doesn't make them Indian. So we have to understand these things. We have to examine these things in great detail with proper clarity. And then we will see the true history of India. There is no question of glossing over the Mughals. There is no question of glossing over the Mughals. We need to be factual. We need to do proper justice to these Mughals. Okay, to those who we call the Mughals. There's no question of glossing anything over. And sir, please, I can speak louder than you. Please don't try to disturb in this manner. I did not interrupt you when you were speaking.
Turkey, I don't understand. Who is this historian?
Babur was from Uzbekistan, from Fergana Valley. What are you talking about, sir? What are you talking about? Turkey? Babur was from Turkey. I am giving a comparison of what happened in Turkey, which is very similar to what happened in India. Understand this. That's how it's done academically. I'm comparing two separate events, which were very similar.
So then why are you saying that Babur came from
was not
Turkey?
Turk. Babur was a Turk, but he was...
Turkish people butchering the Greeks. That they do,
Yes.
do you know the history of that, Greek civilization? And when Alexander came to India, that was okay.
Do I need to learn it from you?
Talking about Alexander coming to India and butchering Indians.
What are you talking about? You are trying to divert from the topic, sir. Focus on the Turks, the Mughals. That's what we are talking about. Okay, and I offered a parallel.
You are
the same people. What they did in Greece.
One particular
Don't be touchy.
period of history. If you talk
Excuse
about
me, sir.
Invaders,
We are looking at things factually over here. And facts don't care about anybody's feelings. Facts don't care about anyone's feelings. Facts are facts. We have to examine them dispassionately.
Why are you leaving out
all right, that's all.
Why are you leaving out the Britishers? Because you are speaking the language of the British. That's why.
What are you talking about? Monojit, I don't know what you're saying.
Monojit,
you got angry.
Mughals were invaders.
Monojit, you get angry. You get angry when these facts happen.
Our country, $9 trillion.
What?
The British, yes. They were all invaders, starting from the Greeks to the Britishers, including the Mughals.
Yes, so.
But you are only
under the
political benefit.
Okay, Abhijit, I got limited time. Vivek, you've not said anything. Has this debate been very educative for you, Vivek? Vivek hasn't said anything. I think he's enjoyed the debate a lot. Would you like to counter anything? Do you agree?
The maximum damage to this country was done by the Britishers, not by the Mughals.
Yeah, and about whom there is more than enough in our history books. One paragraph on each viceroy. What he ate, what kind of food he liked, what kind of clothes he wore. That's the kind of rubbish our children, including you and I, in the past have grown up reading.
Arnab, the image we have of Salim is that affable prince who is...
Yeah, Salim the affable prince. Akbar the Great.
He burnt alive Guru Arjan Dev. People need to know Salim as the man who burnt Guru Arjan Dev alive, rather than that affable prince with a feather in his hand.
This country and left. The Mughals at least...
Monojit is so rattled. His love for Mughals is so intense that he's rattled. He's almost having a meltdown on your show, Arnab. He's almost having a meltdown on his show.
Rashidi and Vivek.
This country and left.
People are loving the debate.
$9 trillion.
People are loving the debate, ladies and gentlemen. We'll have to have a part 2. Vivek, would you like to say something before I close?
You do not know anything about that. The Britishers...
Yes, Arnab, thank you.
You know a lot about
Yes, Mr. Mandal, yeah.
Monojit, you know
Just give me 20
We'll
seconds.
give you the first prize.
You got 20 seconds. Go for it, please.
Just give me 20 seconds.
Side of Akbar against Maharana Pratap in the battle of
Yes.
Fatehgarh.
I agree to you, Arnab, that there's no need to glorify the Mughals.
Thank
you. But let me tell you, we are talking about the NCERT. We are talking about the NCERT today. But Mr. Mandal, let me speak out. You know, Arnab, you should know, the panelists should know, and the viewers should also know. There's chapters like Ram Ki Shakti Puja has been exempted and deleted from the NCERT book. It was written by Suryakant Tripathi Nirala, one of the greatest poets of India. We talk about Mughals, there's no need to glorify. Why this chapter has been removed? Can anyone tell me? Arnab, do you know why Ram Ki Shakti Puja has been exempted and deleted from the NCERT book? Who's going to answer that? Can anyone answer from the panel, including you, Arnab? A man called Suryakant Tripathi Nirala, his chapters have been removed.
What
Why?
does it have to do
That
with
is
the
my
Mughals?
question. This is highly objectionable and shameful.
You know, Arnab, they are so rattled.
I
with their
said
love
there's
for the
no need to
Mughals.
glorify Mughals.
They are so rattled.
I'm agreeing to that.
I'm glad, Arnab. Slowly, I'm sure Monojit will also agree with us. He'll also realize that
debate.
we've not glamorized the British. We don't need to glamorize the Mughals.
I think this has been a great debate. And the question is, whose history am I going to learn?
You used to call Alexander the Great. Who called Alexander?
I don't want to read the history written by people, I won't take their names, who have almost justified the emergency. There are people who have justified the emergency, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, last year, this is my question to you, there's this historian who has been responsible for a lot of the official writing of Indian history during the Congress time. She almost justified the emergency. She tried to appear sympathetic to Indira Gandhi, saying she had no choice. She had no choice. It was because of a judgment that she had to impose the emergency. When people love the emergency, historians justify it. Do I need to read their history? I think not. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, the Chinese can dream as much as they want, but they keep dreaming. They can rename as much as they want. The reality is Arunachal Pradesh is part of India. The Sun Tzu approach of playing mind games is failing abysmally. The Chinese delusion of a greater China will never be a reality. Take a look at their most recent needless provocation, and then we debate.
China is trying to rename regions in the Indian state of Arunachal Pradesh. India has outrightly rejected the laughable claims.
डोकलाम की घटना हुई, चीन की ओर से अतिक्रमण करने का प्रयास जब हुआ, हमारी सेना के जवानों ने मुंह तोड़ जवाब उसको दिया, लेकिन भारत के बहुत लंबे समय तक जो सत्ता में पार्टी रही, उनका युवराज चीन को मुंह तोड़ जवाब देने की बजाय वो चीन के एम्बेसडर के साथ बैठकर सूप पी रहे थे चाइनीज।
Fact is, China can rename all the places they want, but the tricolor will fly high. Chinese mind games have no takers anymore.
You know, you must understand the game which China plays. Their game is long-term basis. They want to keep the pot boiling all the time. What they're doing now is to again keep the same process, and their timing, that's a good question you can ask, is why this timing? This is a very important timing in terms of international development which are happening. What China is doing in Arunachal Pradesh is not restricted to one country only. They have done a similar exercise in other parts of the world.
Any control Beijing thought it had on Bhutan has fallen apart. Bhutan's Prime Minister is holding talks with India. China can dream on about controlling an inch of Indian land. Let's debate.
Political affairs commentator, and from Delhi, Professor Brahma Chelani. Professor Brahma Chelani and Einar Tangen. Mr. Tangen, first, there is a process on, there is a border dialogue on. What is this childishness? We will have some Chinese names on places from Arunachal Pradesh, release a map, etc. It's quite funny. This is cartographic aggression, which we don't understand.
I normally agree, but I think it's a signal from Beijing that they're not happy with, obviously, the Quad, the military exercises between India and the U.S., the promises that the U.S. is going to somehow intervene in any kind of confrontation between India and China. Right now, the situation seems to be at a very low ebb in terms of it. One of the main issues for Beijing is they have kind of lost patience. They don't know exactly what India wants, and they can't seem to get a handle on it. I mean, if you start listening to the parties between Congress and the BJP, it's almost unintelligible in terms of what they both say. It seems to be more of a domestic policy issue, a political issue, than it does a real substantive
yeah, so I don't know
countries.
where this came in. Whatever the debate internally is an internal debate. How is it any of China's business? Also, small point, it's not that you don't understand India. You've also tried to take over and rename parts of Vietnam. You've tried to rename parts of Philippines. You've tried to lay claim over Brunei. You feel that Taiwan is yours. You also believe that large parts of Malaysia are yours. So the problem is a Chinese problem, I say. Brahma Chelani, your view on this, please, Brahma.
I think there's a method to the Chinese madness. China has stepped up its campaign to sinicize names of places in India's Arunachal Pradesh state. It first enacts a land borders law in 2021. That is, a year after it made those stealthy land grabs in Ladakh in India. So it enacts a land borders law and then accelerates the sinicization of places in Arunachal Pradesh. So this seems part of a well thought out revanchist strategy. By renaming places in Arunachal Pradesh, China is laying the grounds to wage war to quote unquote reclaim that region. And let us not forget that the 2021 land borders law was enacted primarily with the aim of advancing China's territorial revisionism in the Himalayas. The law effectively negates the possibility of peacefully resolving the territorial disputes with India. Instead of mutually settled borders, the law enables unilaterally imposed borders. So given that background and given the fact that the next target of China is going to be Taiwan, especially if the war in Ukraine extends much longer.
Yeah.
In that context, I think we should not dismiss this renaming of places by China in an Indian state.
Yeah.
Because China's aggressive revisionism has a method to its madness.
No, possibly.
And I think it'll be a mistake. It'll be a mistake like we did in the past. We have paid a heavy price for not taking China's words and actions seriously in the past.
No, possibly.
Starting from the 1950s, we have made that mistake. And I think we shouldn't make that mistake again.
No, possibly. But I was very interested to see the reference to the Congress party from Mr. Tangen. Mr. Tangen, could you elaborate on that? What was it from the Congress
my
party
point
that you were saying?
That
please?
you seem to have a difference internally. It's not China's business. What happens internally within India.
Internally, please?
The issue is that it's not clear exactly what India wants. China's been, there have been 17 talks, very little progress has been done. It takes two to dance. And at this juncture, from Beijing's point of view, they don't believe that India is willing to do this. They see this as a welcome distraction from internal politics.
Mr. Tangen, you almost said something and left it there. Why don't you complete what you said? You were saying something very interesting about the Congress party. I find it very interesting. What was that reference to the Congress party about? In the context of the debate on China?
What I said is that the Congress party and the BJP seem to be locked in some sort of debate, but it's not clear what the overall direction is
on what?
From
debate
India.
On what?
If you had a regime, if you had
debate on what?
Voting in a different party, within the next few years or something like that, what would be the position of India? There's something called continuity. It's not in fashion now that the U.S. Basically reneges on treaties and things like this, but between states that are neighboring, where neither is going anywhere, there has to be a certain level of trust, and that trust is non-existent these days.
1 minute. Did you hear that? You say that the Congress's approach, what he's trying to say towards China, is different from the BJP's approach.
No, I was privy to these spokespeople from the BJP in Congress earlier on a different show, and it was very hard to figure out exactly what they were claiming. They both seemed to accuse the other of something untoward and things like that. It's an internal political discussion. But
Yeah.
it just my
That's
point
why, but do you
that
see
they're
any,
not clear about what it is they want.
Don't know.
One side
Mr.
says
Mr. Tangen, I tell you one thing. I've always held the view that political debates happen everywhere in a democracy. Since China is not in the privileged position of being a democracy, maybe it's a rather new experience for someone in Beijing. But usually, this is the way things happen most around the world.
I'm an American, so you
yeah, you're an American, but I mean, it doesn't happen in China. I'm sure you don't have debates on anything in China.
I'm an American citizen,
yeah,
so
but
I'm here at your invitation to express some thoughts about how China sees this. I'm not speaking for the leadership. I'm simply giving you a view. If you don't want to accept it, I understand.
No,
but you can't criticize me for speaking.
Mr. Tangen, now listen to me. Hear me. It's not a question of accepting. If you want a diversity and very colorful debates on foreign policy right now, you being an American should listen to American television shows. You will see the way they're going at each other's throats. It's not the way here in India, but there's nothing unusual about it, but that's a distraction. Brahma. Brahma said earlier, Professor Nalapat, that we must not ignore what the Chinese are doing. They are playing to a plan.
I'd like to agree completely with what Brahma says. And I'd like to point out that both the Congress party's complaint against the BJP is that the BJP is too soft on China. It's not that the BJP is too hard on China or is too inflexible. They are accusing the BJP of essentially ignoring the threat from China and being too soft on China in these negotiations. So that was the difference between the Congress party and the BJP, where China is concerned. And both sides are completely agreed that the Chinese are in illegal occupation of large tracts of Indian territory, that even in 2020, efforts were made to take over tracts of Indian territory, and and as a consequence, there needs to be strong action to ensure that this territory is retrieved. Now, according to the Chinese law, Chinese land is what the Chinese Communist Party decides is Chinese land. I'm not sure if someday, this parts of the United States, Hawaii, for example, may be seen as belonging to China in some Chinese map. I can assure Mr. Tangen, who's whom I really respect as a very keen student of history, and Mr. Gao also I see here, that there are numerous Chinese maps. In fact, many of these maps have been distributed in international conferences, which clearly show land belonging to India and to other countries as Chinese territory. And now you have passed a law that it is obligatory on the leadership to reclaim every square millimeter of that land. Then where is the desire for debate? There is only a desire for the other side to unilaterally concede the demands that are being made by China.
Okay, so viewers, this is being seen. We have two analysts here from India, both of whom are extremely respected, Brahma Chelani as well as Professor Madhav Nalapat, who are not looking at this as renaming alone. They are looking at this as a direct obstruction to the ongoing dialogue process. And I would tend to agree. Victor, if you have a dialogue process which has to be successful, then putting any such pressure tactics is not going to be very useful. Should we rename Tibet? Should we rename Xinjiang? Should we, and by the way, in 2016, the International Court of Justice completely trashed China's claims on the South China Sea, which it had claimed releasing historical maps to claim territory. So what's the point of doing this? What's the intention, Victor?
Thank you very much for having me. I thought you want us to talk about China-Indian territorial dispute. So let's focus on that important subject without deviating into others. You may know for sure China has 14 land neighboring countries, and China has signed land border treaties with 12 of them. India and Bhutan are the only two exceptions. If you look at India, India has many territorial disputes, not only with China, but Pakistan and many others, for example. So I think India really need to do a soul searching as to whether
What about
really
China?
wants to
What about China? Can I just, no, I'm sorry to intervene. Victor, can I just use your own logic on yourself? You have, no position to make that comment. If there is one country in the world which has the most territorial disputes, morning, evening and night, you have territorial disputes for breakfast, for lunch and for dinner. You are fighting with half the world at this point of time. As I have said, you are fighting with Vietnam, Philippines, India, Brunei, Taiwan, Malaysia. You are fighting with everyone. You are claiming ownership to half the world, and how can you come and say that India should do some soul searching? Do you have no soul to search? No, do you not have continuous border disputes with everyone? Can you tell me one country with whom you share a border who you are at peace with? Name one.
I hope you will do serious homework, and if you want to demonstrate your scholarship, you need to be flawless in your scholarship.
It is very well established.
What you demonstrate is really overreaching. You are disregarding facts, real hard facts, about the fact that China has signed border treaty with 12 neighboring countries on the land, and India and Bhutan are the only countries which failed to sign land border treaties with China. Vietnam has
signed. What do you mean failed to sign? What do you mean we're obligated to sign something that you draft? I don't understand. You have border disputes and territorial disputes with so many countries.
Eventually, India and China need to sign the border treaty.
I agree with you.
Period.
I agree with you.
Yeah, eventually, through negotiation and through peaceful negotiation, rather than bluffing, rather than trying to step into the shoe of the British Indian Empire, you will never be able to achieve what the British Indian Empire failed to achieve. Be realistic.
The British ruled over large parts of you, sir. The British forced opium on you, sir. The British history with the Chinese is very bloody, sir. I know that the Chinese even now have an inferiority complex vis-a-vis the British. Don't thrust that on me, sir. Your history with the British and your history with the Japanese is your own problem, not mine. You have a bloody and cruel history with the British. You deal with it. You were ruled over by the British and so are we. But don't thrust your history on me, sir. Please don't do that.
Listen, and India will never be able to achieve what the British Indian Empire has failed to achieve. That's my point.
Sir,
if you want to achieve what the British Indian Empire wanted to achieve,
you deal with the British
you will
yourself.
fail. And you will fail.
Okay, I will get. See, I'm not being aggressive with you. If you want, I can be. But you see, please. Have you forgotten Sun Tzu? At least prepare to look pacific and look peaceful. And then be warlike. Why you are warlike? Don't be warlike with me tonight. I'll let Brahma Chalani respond to you on this. It's getting complicated, Brahma. This is genuinely getting complicated.
And releasing names of places in an Indian state is only one of China's latest provocations. There have been a series of provocations by China in recent months against India. We had an attempt by Chinese forces to ingress into Yangtze area of Taiwan. You've seen how China is helping Myanmar militarize the Coco Islands. The Coco Islands historically were Indian possessions. There's no dispute on that. The British transferred the Coco Islands to Myanmar in 1887. The fact is that the Coco Islands are an extension of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and if China gains a foothold on the Coco Islands, it will not only open a maritime front against India, but also complete India's strategic encirclement. So we're seeing an attempt by China to open new fronts against India, and we are seeing efforts by China to enlarge the area of confrontation. There are already several military standoffs that are in place. These standoffs have entered the 35th month. So we are looking at prolonged military confrontation along the Himalayas. All that has not deterred China from stepping up its aggressive actions and moves against India. And that raises the question, is Indian policy failing to deter China? If so, we need a rethink on our China policy.
I'd like Einar to respond. See, Einar, a rethink is what needs to be looked at. I think posturing is not good. Let the talks continue.
Well, I don't think there's any issue with talks continuing. China has been involved, but very little has been accomplished because neither side seems to know what the other one wants. India insists that China is being aggressive. Beijing believes that it's India that's being aggressive. There is no trust at this point. So, with U.S. joint military exercises, with India joining the Quad, which is obviously against China, but interestingly enough, being excluded from AUKUS, which is about nuclear submarines. Once again, it's okay for white people to have, big toys, but not India. I thought that was quite strange. At this juncture, talks are the best way to do this. But to Victor's point, China is not going to just roll over and say, this is just fine. There are competing claims for territories by both sides. It would be best if they could settle them. But this idea that India is going to get everything that it wants and just push China over, or vice versa, is nonsense.
I think that there are bigger things at play here. I think at some level it is China's concern about its own economic long-term challenges and institutional challenges, and a picture 10 years from now. And perhaps it's preparing for that situation where its supremacy even in the region is going to be put under challenge. But I'd like one word quickly in response from Professor Madhav Nalapat.
I'd like to point out that our Chinese friends keep talking about international rules, following international order, and what happened in the Spratly Islands. Now, may inform Mr. Gao that the agreement with Myanmar and China was settled on the basis of the McMahon line. The very McMahon line that the Chinese say where India is concerned is a colonial relic has become the accepted boundary with Myanmar. There are innumerable Chinese works, Chinese books, Chinese maps, saying that Vladivostok was, and large tracts of Siberia are part of China. And yet China has worked out a border agreement with Russia.
Okay.
The reason for why India is not in that list is, unfortunately, because India will refuse to play the Chinese game.
Well,
China does not want India to be friendly with the US or the West.
I think there is
friendly with everybody.
I think it will take a few years for everyone to realize that India will have its own foreign policy that is not meant at putting individual countries at ease. I thank everyone for that. The breaking news right now is that Donald Trump, we were told, is facing arrest, and we'll run the pictures full frame before I wrap up tonight. The pictures on your screen that he's awaiting arraignment and that he's under arrest. And viewers, that's the big story. Live pictures coming in from New York. He has arrived at the New York court. This is the live and breaking story. In the Manhattan court, he's going to be presented, arraigned, and it'll be seen whether this is a turning point in the 2024 in the next American elections, whether this is going to be the end of Trump or a turnaround for Trump. In a few minutes, back with that live. For now, good night and goodbye.